This is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and the occasional pop-in Sebastian Romero. On this week's Weigh-In, we talk to you about real American freestyle wrestling. And why we talk about it is because it's off to what is, I say, an amazing start. You know, it's in its era, as I should say. And we will go over the champions and some of the good matches lately that have been real good. And that is what I have for you on this week's Takedown Thursdays episode presented by the Weigh-In. So, with that being said, so we jump right into this one. First and foremost, we talk about the issues of what is, like all said, weight making. First and foremost, if you all don't know, Jordan Oliver, trying to find it. I was trying to find it, but more than less than most. I'm pretty sure, as I'm looking for that, I'm pretty sure it was Jordan Oliver that missed weight. Yeah, Jordan Oliver, they say missed weight and had to vacate his belt. So that's interesting. But they've been doing some really good matchups. Like you have Bartlett Oliver, which is a good match. I like it. You have David Carr versus Jenkins, this is the new coming up stuff. You have Chisholm versus, this is one that I'm excited for. Chisholm versus O'Toole. I think that's going to be really good. You had Kadick versus Wick. You have some good stuff. So really, really what has been really surprising, and if you missed it, I won't really, obviously I'm going to spoil it, but I won't really spoil the match for say. Austin Dos Santos beat Nathan Tomasello, that shocked me. That shocked me, but at the same time, it's a really good thing. And I say it's a good thing because Nathan Tomasello is a great wrestler, but boy I think RAF has done such a great thing right now. And when you look at that in terms of, and I know everybody they have asked me this in the future. I mean, they have asked me this in the past, not future. My bad. They've asked me this in the past. And as they've asked me, what looks like it has come off to a better start. And I like how Claw's running, Claw Wrestling. I'm gonna talk about Claw for a little bit because kind of Claw and RAF they're the competitors, although they are two different styles. They are the competitors, but I think it's an interesting when you can base it up. Obviously, Claw's got 31K followers, around 31K followers on Instagram. When you look at RAF is at 156. So it tells you, and I'm not trying to compare the two because they're very two different, but it tells you RAF is growing a lot bigger. And I think if it's anything that's gonna hit the market, I think it's gonna be RAF. RAF is gonna hit the market a little better because I think the issues into Claw are it's not exactly freestyle. It's kind of a mix of both, and I think what the fans right now want to see is what happens with. I'm not saying they don't want to see Claw. I'm not really They want to see that real American where the matchups are like UFC-ish, belts are out. You know, I think if you were going for the pro style team and doing this and that, I like what let me see if I could find it. There is a league that just is straight if I can find it, I'm gonna look for it. If I can find it, I find it. If I can't, I can. You know, it's one of those things where if I can, I can. But I'm gonna look for you. Um, but if I can find it, I can find it. If I can find it, I find it. Let me see what I can find for you. Let me see what I can find. And let me see. I'm looking for this though. I'm looking for this. I'm gonna get this for you guys. Do, 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 do. If I can find it, I can. If I can't, I can't. You know, kind of thing. But it was a whole nother wrestling league that was kind of up that up that Jersey area that was rolling pretty good. It was rolling pretty good up that Jersey area. Really good, really good. It was kind of similar to like Claw and all of them. A little bit smaller, but a good looking league though. A good looking league though. Had a good looking league thing going, and I thought that was a good looking league. Um, it was a good looking league. I thought it was a really good league, and it was solely it was solely folk style. It was a folk style league, and I think the issues of why you see Claw a little not getting the showing that it should. Um, I feel like that's the case solely because I feel like that's the case solely because you're a mix of free and the difference is like yeah it's good it's and don't get me wrong the only I don't want to say the wrong thing here but Real American Freestyle was Hulk Hogan backed and I get that it got its platform from being back to Hulk Hogan but where you stream has nothing to do with the following you gain and I think in terms of it I think you have to look at if you're going to put like teams together here, I think you got to really like stack it up and do it right. Like you got to really like, and I'm not saying it wasn't done right. I'm not saying that. We're embarking on, you know, kind of the brainstorming here of how they can get better. Um, how they can get better or up there because we're kind of just going on here on how they could have gotten up there. So we're kind of just getting up there. We're kind of just getting up there, and with all that being said, you look at that and you say, okay, yeah, it's got an aspect going, it's got a good thing going, but it's not seeing the numbers of Real American Freestyle, and I think it's solely. I mean, I get it. Real American Freestyle's got all the big names, but I think Claw's got get some promotional things going. I think it's kind of, when you look at the post game, and I say post game as in post made, you know, into all the stuff. When you look at all of that, and we break that down for you. So we're gonna go ahead and see if we could break that for you. Never found that league, but worry less, I will still be looking. Um, so we're gonna look at, like, okay, when we look at Claw, like, you see, graphic wise, the stuff looks, it looks simple, pretty good. Um, you can't say there's nothing wrong with the posting game. They made an all pros post. They said 2025 second team all pros. But what I mean by that is, okay, when you look at the all pros post, obviously I'm not gonna show it to the camera because of copyright, but when you look at this all pros post, the best looking post I saw was they got a good looking trophy. I will give them that. A good looking trophy. I know somebody somebody reached out to me and said it looks like a pylon, and I was like, nah. I like the idea though. I like the idea though. I like the idea though. Somebody said that, and I was like, I don't really go that way. No, I'm saying some posts have looked really good, and I think that in terms of it, like, it's just, I'm not saying anything's right or wrong, but I'm like, there are some posts that I look at here, and I'm like, you know, what? Like, I look at one post they put up that real nice. Um, it talked about Zach Sheeman versus Tristan Morgan, and it was real nice, 145 pound, real nice post, and that's a good thing. It's like, but some of them are all not in that really good format, and I think I'm not saying that that has anything to do with why they're not getting good following. We're just kind of breaking down at this point. But when you look at RAF, if we talk about RAF, which is Real American Freestyle, when you look at every post, it's a 10 out of 10 post. It's a 10 out of 10 setup. It's a 10 out of 10. Like, they're making sure when they say the things they do, they're doing it in a good, like, 1, 2, like, you look at it and you're like, wow, look at that. Now, don't get me wrong, they are two different, but you can see the brand identity behind RAF is, like, similar. So it's all sticking to that brand identity. And when we look at Claw, I don't really know what the brand identity here is of Claw because it's all different. I get there are teams and there are this and that, but, like, there's no across the board good, like, templated textile. And I'm not saying that plays the role to anything. I'm just saying, like, you gotta have structure here. And I get on you know, the outside eyes looking in, but I'm saying you gotta have structure here. You want to build enough structure so that when somebody sees, a post or two, they're like, wow, this is really good. Because the difference here for what you're saying is you want to pack. And this is another thing. And this is a true to nature thing that is also, I learned in the wrestling community, is a big part. Um, when you look at Claw, if I'm pulling up Claw, I'm pulling up Claw. When you look at Claw, when you look at Claw, this is the truth. You have no women, and I know that's kind of like, why am I bringing that up? You look at Real American Freestyle. Not that this is turned into comparing the two, but it is. women wrestle, and I think that that is a big part of wrestling, and that accounts for uh, a percentage of the wrestling fan base is women. So the fact of the matter is, Claw not having women and Claw not, being what it is, and it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong, and it's a great thing. It it's just not getting the coverage it should, and that's what I'm getting at. I'm getting at it's not getting the coverage it should, and you can tell it's not getting the work it should. But I think in terms of that, I don't think it's one way versus another. I think it's just very simple. Um, you know, I think it's just one way versus another. When they did their battle week post, I like that. Like there's some really good Claw stuff that has come out that you look at it and you say 10 out of 10. And I think that's where I would say if you're Claw, that's where I would kind of try to, because I think you got the league and all the wrestling down and it looks good. You got big name like Zane Rutherford out there, and that's a good thing. And you got Reese Humphrey out there. You got some good stuff. I think the terms is, build that brand identity, although it's already there. And let's continue that all the way across. So most of these posts look solid. They end up looking very solid across the board. And obviously all these leagues are new, but you can't expect it to be the big and best thing in their first couple years. Everybody has the way they do certain stuff, and I get that. I get that all the way around. I get it. So the idea of the general managers, I think you're kind of, failing loose here because you know when you look at what has happened and all of that, and you look at what's going on right now, you look at all that with the Claw and the All Pros, you know, I wonder what the offseason looks like. And I say that because, you look at your GMs were just, it wasn't true to nature GMs. It wasn't a moment where I would have kind of used the GM as a role to kind of put somebody there that's gonna want to do this over and over again. Somebody that's gonna be back. Not an idea where it's kind of like the NBA Celebrity All Star Game, where you're picking new celebs every year. I kind of think you got to kind of stick to a GM, get a GM in the role, and kind of. I think another way here is you got to kind of get these teams rolling as best you can, and I think in terms of this, let's get you where you are. I think there's good things going on the club, but let's get you selling out these stadiums like like RAF. And I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. I think that might be the way coming across. What I'm saying here is I would like to see them both grow. This is really good. Um, and I think that's a really good thing. And I would like to see them both grow because it's a solid. They're two solid wrestling organizations that are really good. When you see that, it's a really good thing, and I think that that's good for what goes on in terms of everything. And I think everybody's got to look at what went down. You had the Professional Wrestling League, which was the big league over where Kyle Snyder wrestled for, and that was overseas. Great league, been around for a long time. Good wrestling coming out. I think at one point they had uh Joey McKenna over there. As I'm looking at some of these posts, but you look at the post game of that, and I'm just saying, you want to drive people to look at something and say, yeah, I definitely want to make sure I watch that. I definitely want to make sure that I'm I'm watching that or giving that what it needs to do. So I just think it's really really tough thing when it comes to it that some of this stuff is huge. You want to get things better as we want these to grow because I think that these things are going to be the next today, the next tomorrow of building the future of wrestling. And I think that because there is there is fairly a reason why. I believe that because the way this is going, you look at the way it's going and how good it's going and all the stuff that's coming out, and you look at all of that and what's going on with all of these wrestling things they do. And I think that it's really good stuff. So in terms of why I think it's really good stuff is because look at what it's done for the sport of wrestling. Look at Claw's got, I mean, not Claw, but Raf's got belts, which is a great thing. Claw's got that trophy. So we're getting basically NFL vibes by getting a team oriented, and then we're getting, UFC vibes with this RAF. And it's great. What I would like to see out of Claw is really, I'd like to see it grow. I'd really like to see that bigger, larger than ever because I'd like to see it get bigger. Because if it gets bigger, I would like to see it in a format almost like the NFL. We got 25. You have 25, 25 to 20 teams that are 25 different teams that are up, able to wrestle. You're getting dual meets everywhere. We're able to get it done because I think Claw's a great format. Claw's a great thing. I think it's it's really good. I think it's really good into all that goes. I don't think there's anything really wrong with what goes on in either league. I think it's fairly interesting. I think it's a really good thing no matter how you look at it. I think it's a really good thing, and I think in terms of that, in terms of that, I think it's really good. I think everything they're going on about has has done really good, and I think that's good. But I think in terms of it, we got to see some we got to see some better stuff. I think that there is really good stuff going on either way. But I think both are doing really well. I think it's good. I just want to see Claw grow. I'm not saying I want to see one over the other because I think they're really great, two great formats. And I like what Claw did. I like how it is. I like how they kind of re-engineered the rules, which is amazing. I think it's thrifty. It's neat. It's pretty sick. It's pretty good. So I think in terms of that, I think it's I think Claw has its way in the market of you know pro wrestling, unscripted pro wrestling, and I think that's a good way. But I think I want to see it grow. I want to see it grow because the problem they have is you don't have the big names like Wrath. So we got to kind of get more bigger names over in that Claw, and it's not really Claw's. I would say it's not really Claw's fault because the money opportunity is bigger, and that's why you're seeing so many of them go to RAF. But I want to see him make it work. I really do. I want to see Claw make it work. Claw could be really good. Um, I want to see it. I want to see it really work. I really do because I think if it could, if it could get itself off to the right start. I say here the right start, and it could look really good. It could be really good. Like Claw has so much potential to grow. It really does. It's just when you look at Claw in the formatting, it is so much room to grow. I know in the previous we talked about the American Freestyle League, which was another old league that was going on that kind of that was around a long time ago. Um, you just wish it could have survived the storm. You really do. You really wish it could have survived the storm. But there's just so many out there that have done so many great things to the sport of wrestling. The way I look at it, um, I've done so many great things to the sport. And I really think like when you look at it through and through, when you look at it the way it is, it's fairly cut and dry. Like I know a lot of people. It's fairly cut and dry, but I think Real American Freestyle is going to keep growing. I think Real American is going to keep growing because it is really up there. You got Nathan Tomasello getting beat by Austin Del Santos, which is absolutely sick. You know, um, I know I didn't run through. Let me go back over to Real American Freestyle here, and let me run you through the current champion. Heavyweight Wyatt Henderson, the RAF heavyweight champion. The RAF lightweight champion Bo Nickel. Not surprised. I'm not surprised. Bo Nickel is really good in terms of wrestling. RAF cruiserweight champion Kyle Dake. RAF middleweight champion Dean Hamady. RAF welterweight champion David Carr. RAF lightweight champion Yanni Diakomahalis. I'm not surprised though. Diakomahalis is tough to beat. RAF bantamweight champion is that Austin Del Santos. It was Nathan Tomasello, but Austin Del Santos beat him. And that's what I'm talking about. You see good stuff with RAF. And then like I know I talked about before Bassett wrestling on RAF, but like they're using the platform to say, okay, we're gonna bring you the best and the biggest matchups. Like it's crazy that and RAF middleweight women's champion Kennedy Blades, bantamweight champion women's Helen Maroulis, RAF strawweight champion women's Sarah Hildebrandt. So you talk about that. I think one of the biggest. I think this one of the big, and I think let me see if I could find it. I can find it because it was definitely. I gotta pull the. I gotta pull the email up for you. I gotta pull up. I think that's where it was. I gotta find it because somebody like sent this to me, and I was like, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, somebody sent me through the socials and medias, as I always like to say, why somebody sent me the they wanted my thoughts on, not really that I was ever going to, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not that I was gonna weigh in on this matchup because I don't really keep up with that much high school wrestling as I should, you know. But the question was, they asked me, have I seen Miss Cradle wrestle and Cova Cradle wrestle, and what are my thoughts if they went into a match on Wrath? And I was kind of, I didn't really answer them. I kind of just was gonna put it in a epi like now. I, I see it like this. I see two good athletes, and that's just the case. You know, I haven't seen either or wrestle enough to say if it would be a thriller. I don't know. I don't watch that much high school wrestling as much as I said. Like I say, I keep up mostly with, if I'm watching anything high school wrestling, it's more than less Bo Bassett. Um, or it's like schools in New Jersey, when they're at tournaments that are on Flow and stuff like that. I don't really, but they brought it up to me about what would I think of that stellar matchup, but I kind of said, well, if it goes down, it goes down. It's not something that I'm sitting there saying, anything, but I do say this: good rivalries grow with beef, and if there's no like, that's just kind of that's just what I've learned from covering so much UFC is like when the beef shows up, that matchup will be there. But that's one that I kind of say I don't really watch. I have not seen either or of them. That's all enough to say, hey, this will happen or that'll happen. So I kind of say if it goes to RAF, it would it be interesting? Yes. They're two publicly widely known figures for, I guess, cradles. I don't, I would guess for the cradle, but at a point in time, it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, I don't really know. More or less, like I don't watch enough high school wrestling, and then even that, like, I just don't. I kind of stick to college and professional. I got RAF that I look at most of the time, and I got RAF that I look at most of the time. I got Claw that I'm looking at, and then I got UFC I got to watch, and I got boxing I got to watch. Like I got a lot. I got a lot to do. I got a lot to do. So it's just not there's just not enough hours in the day for me to all this, you know, I just don't have enough hours in the day, but nonetheless, that is that is just this episode. You know, you guys can always keep sending the questions. I'll try and answer them. When they're like that, where it's kind of unanswerable for me, I kind of say unanswerable. I'll talk about it, but it's not much I can do, extensively. And, I kind of say I don't cover too much what ifs, although I do. But I kind of say, I would do something extensive if it was scheduled for RAF. If it was scheduled for RAF, that's a little different. I would kind of say, I'll do the full workup and I'll conjoin and draft an opinion. But I mean, I've been asked a lot of questions, but I don't say I neglect the ones that are about high school wrestling, but I kind of say like I try my best way to talk about it in a way that is vast for all wrestlers can understand. I do the best I can. Well, either way, like, comment, subscribe, share. This is yet another episode of Takedown Thursdays. This is The Weigh-In by Ben Chestnut and occasionally the Pop in Celestial Merrill. And that is all I have for you on this one. I hope if all or most of the questions were answered, I hope. If not, send it again and I'll make sure I get to it next time. Weigh it out. The Weigh-In, where stories